Welcome to the Practice Brave podcast. I am the host, Brianna Battles, founder of Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism and CEO of Everyday Battles. I'm a career strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, mom of 2 wild little boys, and a lifelong athlete. I believe that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins, and this podcast is dedicated to coaching you by providing meaningful conversations, insights, and interview topics related to fitness, mindset, parenting, and of course, all the nuances of pregnancy and postpartum. From expert interviews to engaging conversations and reflections, this podcast is your trustworthy, relatable resource for learning how to practice brave through every season in your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practice Brave podcast. Today I have Jordan Syatt, and I'm really excited to share so much about the work that he's done throughout years spent in the fitness industry. He's been a strong voice, a really strong influence, and honestly of just sanity in the fitness industry, where we've seen so many different extreme approaches. One thing I've really appreciated about Jordan is he has stayed really consistent in his messaging while evolving his coaching. And that's something that so many of us have a lot to learn from. So Jordan, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I very much admire and respect you, and it's been wonderful to connect, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having this conversation. So for those that aren't as familiar with your work, give us a little bit of your background, both like as an athlete and then coach and entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I grew up wrestling. I'm a short, bald Jewish guy, and my mom was really worried that my brother and I were going to be picked on when we were kids. So she walked in the living room one day when I must have been 7 years old at the time. No, I was eight. And she was like, all right, I'm putting you both in wrestling. And the only wrestling that I knew was like WWE style wrestling. So I remember I looked at her and I was like, you want me to hit someone with a chair? And she was like, no, like Olympic style wrestling. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what it was, but she put us into wrestling and I immediately fell in love with it. My entire family is very academic, doctors, lawyers, teachers, professors, superintendents, and I was in special education, and I was the black sheep in that, like, I was never good in school, but I was good at athletics and sports, and no one else in my family did sports. So I started wrestling, and it just was the best thing. I fell in love with it. I loved it. And by the time I got to high school, I made varsity as a freshman. And then if I wasn't already obsessed enough, it just took it to a new level. But when you're 14 on varsity, you're going up against mainly 17 and 18-year-olds. And so I had to cut a lot of weight and get stronger. And I was decent from a technical perspective, but my strength was nowhere near where it needed to be as a 14-year-old boy going against like 17, 18-year-old boys. So I started to look into strength and conditioning, trying to figure out how do I get stronger? And we were living in Massachusetts at the time. So I found a gym. It was a kettlebell gym because I was obsessed with kettlebells and I thought they were the key and they were a wonderful tool, but I thought like, this just must be it. And it was when Pavel Tsatsouline was really breaking out and becoming well known. So I wrote an email to this kettlebell gym and I was like, I'll take the trash out. I'll clean the floors. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just can I come in and learn from you? And I was very blessed because they took me under their wing. They let me intern there, and that turned into coaching there. And so I worked there all through high school and learned how to get stronger. And through that, I developed a tremendous passion for strength and conditioning and then nutrition and all of that. And this is really the only industry I've ever been in is the fitness industry. And from there, after I graduated high school, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to cut weight anymore. So then I went into powerlifting, where I continued to cut weight, and I competed in powerlifting, and I trained at Westside Barbell, and I did that for a number of years. I was very fortunate. I was able to. My goal was deadlift 4 times my body weight, which I did. I deadlifted 530 at 132. Then I retired from powerlifting. Really went all in, focusing on my business for a while, and I got fat and out of shape while I was focusing on my business. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu, and that was about 4.5 years ago. And and yeah, so now my wife and I, we live in Dallas. We have two beautiful daughters, and I just do strength training and nutrition and mobility and performance. And I just try and help people fit fitness into their life rather than trying to fit life into their fitness. And I want I want everyone to know that they can be an athlete. You know, you look at me, I'm small. Again, I'm 5'3". I'm like 140. I don't look like a bodybuilder. So I've never really been a training for aesthetics guy. I've been more like, I want to train to perform really well, and I want people to feel confident in what their body can do. And so that's what I try and do. And the vast majority of my clients are actually women, anywhere from young 20s all the way to mid 80s. And it's great. I just recently, a number of women in my membership have started doing a lot of box jumps for the first time in their life. They're like, you've got women in their 40s and 50s and 60s jumping onto boxes and starting off with half an inch and an inch all the way up. I've seen one woman in her 50s going up to like a 20-inch box, and it's just, it's wonderful. So my passion is getting people to feel confident in what their bodies can do.
Yeah. And in one sentiment, like, thank you for sharing all of that. I love like the timeline. So people just kind of like hear like how you evolved and came up. But one thing I'm hearing is from the beginning, you like who you are has sort of dictated what you decided to do. You're like, given your physicality, you were like, okay, I'm going to go into wrestling despite what the rest of my family has done. And even though like this is the career paths of others, I'm really inclined to do this. Like, you're able to shoot your shot, so to speak, with working at the different gyms and like having that facilitate where your career went. Sounds like you've pretty consistently lived in alignment with who you are and therefore what you've done.
Yeah, and I've been very blessed. My mom is absolutely incredible, and she's supported me in everything I've done. It's funny because personal training has never been seen as a respectable career. It's just, even now, people like, when people ask what I do when I don't know them and they don't know me, I always just say personal trainer, because if they treat me differently from when I say personal trainer to when they see my social media, I don't really want anything to do with that person. And my family always, like, again, doctors, lawyers, professors, they're always like, personal trainer. And even now my mom will be like, you could always go back to school, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Like, even now, and I love her to death. She's amazing. But I've been so blessed, and like, thank God I was born when I was born, and things have happened the way they've happened, because if I was born at a different time, then it may not have happened that way. I think this is the first time in history in which you can make your passion into a career. Whereas before it was like, whatever you got to do to put food on the table, which is still very much a reality for, I think, so many people. But I also think many people don't realize that we have the resources and the abilities now. Whatever you're passionate about, if you want, you can make it a career.
Yeah, I feel that. Like, and I don't feel like that was necessarily like laid out when I was in college, where it was like, if you're working in the strength and conditioning industry, you can be entrepreneurial, unless it was open a gym. But even then, like, that wasn't a career path that was really well laid out. And so being able to, like you said, kind of come up in the right era where you started to see more online courses and social media kind of booming when we were coming up in the field of being like professional, like that timing worked out so well. And with that, like, you are one of the few voices that has sustained since way back then. When did you really start coming online and sharing? When was that?
So I made my website and started writing my first articles in July of 2011. So it's been a while, and at that time I was also every day I was doing something called a strength lesson on my personal Facebook page before business pages were really a thing. And to be fair, at that time, I didn't know an online business was possible. My goal wasn't to build an online business. It was to eventually open a gym. Yeah. And that's because that was the only career path at that time.
Right.
And then I was just writing articles. The reason I was doing that is because the coaches that I respected were writing articles at that time. I was like, okay, this is what I should do. And I was in my college dorm room writing articles, and the kids were going out partying, and they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm writing an article. And I was a loser in college. Like, I never went out, I never partied, and I was very alone. And I was like, I'm just going to study and learn and write. And it wasn't until about a year and a half, 2 years after I started writing articles online. And for the first, again, year and a half, 2 years, I only got like 20 views a day on my website. And that was like a really good day. And most of them were my mom. And after a couple of years, I started to get a handful of people following. And the only reason I began to realize an online business was possible is because a random woman from Brazil emailed me saying, how much do you charge for online coaching? And I was just like, I don't know, like $300. I just made it up, $300. I didn't have a timeline. I didn't have a program. I was just like, I don't know. And she was like, how do I pay you? And I was like, I don't know. So I Googled, how do you make online payments? And I found this thing called paypal.com. And I made an account, and this woman sent me $300. And I was like, holy shit. And so then I was at University of Delaware at the time. And so I went to this coffee shop called Brouhaha on Main Street. And for the entire weekend, I made this woman, I was like, this woman just sent me $300. I need to make the best training program and nutrition plan that's ever existed in this world. And I spent the whole weekend at Brouhaha making this one woman's program. And I thought that once I sent it, I thought she was going to send it back and ask for a refund. And she loved it. And it was great. And so that's when I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is something I could do.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how that hooks you? Like, where somebody else's belief in you and like validation of the stuff that you're doing, you're just like putting out there it feels like nobody sees it initially. And then when one person does, that's like the boosted confidence that's not coming from our mom that like really drives the next right thing, like same, like my mom was like, oh honey, like you can do anything. Number one supporter, but like, yeah, when somebody else sees the value that you're bringing, where it seems like you're just like saying the same thing over and over, and finally it resonates with somebody and there's financial like compensation, it's like, oh my God, this is it.
Yes, it's exactly right.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been really cool to see, your work evolve over the years.
Thank you.
How have you stayed consistent in showing up online and honestly, like just evolving your coaching, what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Staying consistent online is the exact same way I tell my clients to stay consistent with their training and nutrition. And it's funny because I see coaches who they berate their clients. It's like, you just got to stay consistent. It's not that hard. Just eat fruits and vegetables and protein and go work out a few times a week. And then these same coaches will come to me and be like, my social media is not growing. And then I look at their social media and they posted 4 times in the last 6 months, and they posted pictures of their pickup truck and their dog. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how in the world can you possibly tell someone to stay consistent and then you're not doing it? It's the exact same thing. It's just, you got to do it. And for years, I would make biannual. So on my birthday, which is in May, and then around the new year, I would sit down and handwrite my goals. And I would have my objective-based goals, like the goals that I wanted to achieve, and then I would have my action-based goals, the things that I would do in order to achieve them every day. But at the top of the paper, I would write like my mission, like what was the one thing that I really wanted to do. And the mission has never changed from 2011. It was just, I just want to help as many people as possible. And well, how do you help people? You could help people in person. You could have a brick and mortar gym. That's a great way. But if your goal is online, you're not helping people if you're not posting, if you're not sharing. So it's very simple. It's just, I just have to keep showing up. And I would say at this point, I don't want to post probably 92% of the time, but I'm still posting. And that's just what you got to do.
Yeah. And even with that, I feel like, you've also been able to withstand a lot of backlash. And I appreciate the sarcasm and the approach that you've had to a lot of that too, to combating all of the people that sort of like want to rebuke things that you say, or the what about all of those things, which like in the fitness and health and nutrition space, there's always somebody who's looking and cannot like understand nuance, who wants to like pick apart what you say or how you say it. It's probably, for me anyway, the most frustrating part of showing up online is knowing that there's always a what about perspective, and somebody who's never engaged in your content before chooses to pick apart this one piece, right? How have you navigated that and not just been like, fuck it, this is so discouraging, I'm over people?
I think it is very discouraging and frustrating and infuriating and obnoxious. It is. I think if I wasn't also getting positive feedback and knowing that what I was saying was making a difference, then I probably would have quit many, 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 many years ago. It's just knowing that every time that I post, as long as it helps one person, that's all I care about. Even long before I was making money doing it, long before that woman reached out and said, how much do you charge? I was writing one article for my website. It was very different than social media posts. One article would take between 16 to 24 hours of work in terms of thinking of the topic, planning the topic, writing it, editing it, formatting it. It was at least 16 to 24 hours of work per article. And I wasn't getting paid for it. And I was doing this for years. And all because my form of payment was just one person saying this was super helpful. That was it. And so as long as I'm focusing on the people that I'm helping, I can't control that people will misinterpret it deliberately or not, that people won't pay attention to what I say, they'll put words in my mouth, or just that they disagree, which is totally fine. But as long as I know that I'm helping people, then that's the payment that keeps me going.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I just have to like get pissed for a little bit, and then I'm like, okay,
yes.
Ultimately, I know that like the majority of people that are following are here and appreciative of whatever I'm putting out there into the world, and I can move on. But I do think that you have to develop some thick skin when you are showing up online, because it's being like professionally vulnerable is really challenging for most people to like not just show up like and share your feelings. That's a different kind of vulnerability, but like to show up as a professional and put your face and your name and your words out there to help a lot of people also withstand some criticism. Like that's a different type of vulnerability.
Yeah, it is. And quite frankly, I don't think it's good for your health. The anger that comes from it and the frustration, like it's the stress that comes. Listen, I don't think entrepreneurs are the longest living population, right? I just don't. The amount of stress that comes with it, the anger, the frustration, the fear, all of that. Yeah. But if it's what you're passionate about, then it's worth it.
Yeah. What would you be doing if you weren't in the fitness industry, if you weren't an entrepreneur? Have you ever given that like some thought?
Yeah, I'd be a history teacher without a question. Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I love history. I was never good with math and I wasn't good in school, but I love history. And I love reading about it. I love studying it. I love talking about it. And there's no question. I probably would have been a high school history teacher.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny that you mentioned math. I'm trying to help my 12-year-old learn 6th grade math. And I'm like, oh my God, this is torture. I was using ChatGPT to try to like, okay, explain this to me like I'm a kid. So then I can like turn around and help him. But it's a brutal phase to enter into when you're like, I hated this. And now we're back.
My wife and I talk about it all the time because our daughters are 1 and 3. And so we're not there yet. But we were both in special education. And so we're both like, what are we going to do when they come home with math homework? And I'm just praying that they are infinitely smarter than we are and they won't need our help because I have no clue how I'm going to be able to do that.
Yeah, this is the first time that he's like solicited some help, and I have to like teach him systems and how to like manage things. I'm like, oh my God. It's a wild season to enter. And of course, like having little kids brings its own challenges. I've created a whole business around that. But it is funny when you like enter a new era when you're like, oh, okay, our life looks different and how I need to show up for my kids is a little bit different now too.
My struggle is going to be, I know already I cannot let myself do this, but going to see the math homework and me being like, this is just pointless. Like I can't say that because like it's not the right message to send, and you have to do it even if you don't think it's worth it. Like sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. But I know my internal dialogue is like there's no reason to be learning. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's like exactly where I'm at. Where I'm like I don't think there's a point to this, and you don't get to have like autonomy and freedom and all these creativity until like you learn how to do things that you don't want to do. And, you like learn from somebody that you don't necessarily like that's the building blocks of creating like, more like free thought and entrepreneurship or whatever else direction that might be. It'll find him if that's the pathway he chooses to go down. But man, I look at it, I'm like, this is dumb. Why are we doing this?
Do you consider homeschooling?
I've thought about it. And I feel like now, like elementary school was great for my boys. They both really loved it. I feel like now middle school, like this is where shit's getting real in so many different ways. And I'm seeing with my older one, he's wired exactly like I am, And so I see like the ways that I struggled, he struggles. We just didn't really have a name for it, back then for girls. So, I think it's something that we've talked about, and I'm trying to just give middle school a go. Like we're like 1 month in, seeing how it goes. We'll see. Like it's not off the radar, but I don't know. I'm like, would he be able to learn from me? Would I be able to teach him? How does that affect like my day-to-day business? Like, I don't know. I've given it some thought. But he is very entrepreneurial leaning in general, like how he operates, how he thinks. And I feel like so much of that can be fulfilled through homeschool. Yeah,
for sure.
But I don't know, man. This is like the stuff that that like you're not fully prepared for in parenthood is like, I don't know. What are we doing?
That's exactly right.
Oh my gosh. But speaking of, so your girls are really young. How has becoming a dad changed just who you are and even like changed how you show up in your business?
Well, I've always wanted to be a dad ever since I was a kid. I didn't think I would get married when I was a kid. My parents had a really horrible marriage, and it was, it was just all that I saw. And I love stand-up comedy. Like I love stand-up comedy. And one of the reasons a comedian will be funny is because what they say has truth to it. And so I would watch these stand-up comedians, and they were all talking horribly about marriage, about how terrible it was. And I was like, okay, so my parents have a horrible marriage. All the comedians are making fun of it. Movies, TV shows, even like the sitcoms back in the day, there's like how bad marriage was. And I was like, why would anyone want to get married? Like, this is horrible. But I always knew I wanted to have kids. And then I met my wife, and I was like, okay, never mind. Marriage could definitely work. And I met some people who had really wonderful marriages, and that was great. But I always knew I wanted to be a dad. And I think for having kids just put me in that, the place where I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just, there's nothing that I love more than being a dad. There's just nothing better that I've ever experienced. I've definitely become more of a man, for sure, in terms of like the protector, it's come out in me in ways that I didn't know existed before. And I've always, done combat sports and all of that, but it's different. It's different when I'm not just protecting myself, like I'm protecting my kids and my family and my wife. And it's come out in a way that I have never felt before. And there are obviously clear hormonal changes that happen with women during pregnancy, postpartum, all of that. And I believe there are also hormonal changes that happen within men when their wife is pregnant, and I would love to see like what's going on biologically, because the way that I think and the way that I feel is just completely different. And the love that I feel is I've never done, hallucinogenic drugs. I have nothing against them. I've just never done them. But one of the things when I speak to people who have done them is they'll say things like, yeah, you see colors that you didn't know existed before. And the love that I feel for my kids is an emotion that I've never felt before. It's just, once I've had my daughters, the way that I feel about them, I've never felt that actual emotion. And the word love doesn't really describe it. It's just completely in a different universe. And I don't even know what else to say other than it's the most amazing thing in the world.
I totally agree. It is. It's love doesn't really define it. It's like a deep level of like protection. I would do anything for you.
Yeah.
And giving them, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but for my own boys, like giving them like what I didn't have in a lot of ways, like the lifestyle that we didn't have, the marriage that I didn't see reflected back to my sister and I when we were little, like just being able to give my boys this gift that they don't even realize is a gift. Like for them, that's just like their normal. And I see that. And it's like, that's so precious. It is so healing. And I know that it is serving them in a way that like, they can't even recognize yet, but it's a very special experience to be able to do that when, it's when you get to live differently as an adult than how you experienced your own childhood or what your picture of marriage was or your family dynamic was.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think it's pretty cool that you experienced something unique like that, where it wasn't just like your wife who had like the significant hormonal changes, but like you felt that on such an intimate way as well.
Yeah, I mean, even when my wife was pregnant with our first, you ever watch the Denzel Washington movie Man on Fire?
Yeah.
It's like such a good movie. I think it's super underrated as well. Like very few people discuss it. But I remember watching that movie and watching him coaching the girl in swimming, and I got that lump in my like I have nothing against crying. It's just I don't really cry very much. And as my wife was pregnant, before I even met my first daughter, I had that big lump in my throat watching him coach her, and I was like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, what is happening?" It's really wild.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it really like brings you into like a different, you meet a different version of yourself on the other side of
Yeah,
parenthood, and something I echo a lot through my work is you become a new person, like you evolve through motherhood. And it's not just about exercise modifications. It's about the entire like transformation that occurs when you become a parent. Like it's just that it's transformation. There's no going back. It's moving forward and discovering who you are on the other side of parenthood.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, you've always done combat sports, you grew up wrestling, and now you almost have like this primal like need and desire to want to protect your family. So you discovered jiu-jitsu about a little over 4 years ago. What has that been like for you to get involved in a sport that's not just about fitness? It's not lifting weights, it's not swinging a kettlebell, and obviously it's very adjacent to wrestling, but to enter a combat sport in your 30s-ish, what has that been like for you?
Yeah. So, well, I knew about jujitsu ever since I started wrestling, or actually since
Right.
it's high school wrestling, because I was really getting into mixed martial arts, and I was watching the Ultimate Fighting Championship and Pride and Bellator.
Yeah.
I was watching all these different organizations, and man, do I miss Pride. That was such an amazing organization. And I always wanted to do it. There was a kid on my wrestling team, Tim Leggett, who did jujitsu at the same time, and he would put me in a triangle choke, and I'd be like, what the hell? Like, it was amazing. It was incredible. It seemed like magic. And after high school, I did try jujitsu. So I was living in Massachusetts. I was living in Boston, and Kenny Florian has an academy in Massachusetts. And I was young and egotistical. And when I was living in Boston, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try jujitsu. And I must have been 24 at the time. And I looked on the website, and I saw they had beginners classes and advanced classes. And me being a young, egotistical wrestler, I was like, I'm not going to the beginner class. I'm going to go to the advanced class. So I show up and I tell them I'm a blue belt, which was not true. It was my first day in jiu-jitsu ever. And I knew the belts, and I knew that, but like I didn't know. Like I had no idea. And I'm going with an actual blue belt, and I went 2 times, and this kid cranked my neck so hard in guillotines, which is what wrestlers get caught in all the time. I literally, I remember getting out of bed. I like had to put my hand behind my head to lift my head off of the pillow. And I did 2 times, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. Like it's affecting my business. Like I couldn't record videos. I was like, I'll get back to it another time. Then like 4 years go by, and I see some. This is what happened. I saw a post from George St. Pierre on Instagram, and with a couple of his training partners. And I see he tagged them. So I tap one of them, and I see he follows me. One of George St. Pierre's training partners had followed me. And so I sent him a message, and I was like, hey man, it's great to see you following me. Like I love GSP, all this stuff. And this guy ended up being a coach at, and actually owning Henzo Gracie Academies in Connecticut. And he coached at the one in New York City. So he was like, why don't you come to Henzo's and just come train? And I was 28 I was 29 at the time. And I went, and I was hooked immediately. And it was a much better starting point. I was at a less egotistical phase in my life. But I did a couple one-on-ones with him, and then I started going to the classes. And I still had that little bit of ego, because my first class, there was this, there's a big difference between a day 1 white belt versus like a 6-month white belt. Huge difference. And I was going with this little girl, and like a woman. She was in her 20s, and she was this little like petite Asian woman. She was like 2-stripe white belt. And Brianna, she fucking wrecked me. And I'm a 10-year wrestler. And I was stronger than her. I was more athletic. And this fucking tiny woman wrecked me. And I was like, what in the hell is going on? It flipped my world upside down because I was overly confident. I was like, I'm a wrestler. I've done this. Like, if I need to protect myself or protect my girlfriend at that time, I was like, I'm good. I was not good. And fortunately, at this point in my life, I was like, I need to know how to do this. I need to learn how to do this because God forbid something ever does happen. It knocked every ounce of confidence out of me. The ego was gone. The confidence was gone. The bravado was gone. And I was like, I'm going to go 2 times a week. Well, then I started going 6 times a week. And I was obsessed. And it's also, it was different because as a strength coach in fitness, you're like, yeah, you only need to train a few times a week. But then you see these jiu-jitsu athletes training 2 times a day, 7 days a week. And I was like, okay, maybe I've been underselling myself on what I can actually do. So I started going 6 times a week and I became obsessed with it. And, it has improved my life in every way, shape, and form. And it's made me a better man, a better husband, a better father. And you know what's funny is but when I was walking around untrained, I never got into fights and I never looked for them, but I was way more confident. And now when I walk around, if there's a whiff of something, I'm like, tell my wife, I'm like, let's go another direction. It's like, I don't even want to get close to where an altercation could happen. The more trained I get, the less I even want to consider the option, which I think a lot of people think about fighters. They're looking for fights. It's like from the men and women that I train with, the more trained you are, the more you know how awful things can go and the less you even want to potentially put yourself in that situation. So it's made me more aware. It's made me stronger. It's made me like not just stronger physically, stronger mentally and emotionally, and more confident in the ability to just say, this isn't worth fighting for. It's just, I mean, listen, you get choked out in the morning. It's a great feeling because like, hey, I lived. I made it out of that session. I'm alive. I can go have a great day. In real life, you don't want that. There's no referee. There's no training partner. You don't tap. It's just, it's made me a much better, more controlled individual.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many points in there I'd love to touch on. Like sometimes people say, I wish I would have started earlier. And I feel like maybe you and I are of the same camp where I'm like, or you did try to start earlier. And I think if I would have started earlier, I would have run into the same like ego issues kind of getting in the way because we assume, well, I'm fit, I'm really strong, I'm an athlete. But jiu-jitsu certainly humbles you. And I think you have to be ready to be humbled. And there needs to be a certain level of athletic maturity where you can go in there and not just try it, but keep showing up. And I think the people that, maybe could be really successful in the sport get discouraged because their ego doesn't really allow them to be a beginner again. And we know as coaches that there's so much value in being a beginner, but there's not always that many opportunities. Like we've both been in the game for a long time. Like we're looked to as being the people with the answers. And so to go into a role where you're like, I don't know this sport. I don't know this move. Jiu-jitsu is great because you are chronically a beginner in some capacity.
Yes.
Forever. Yeah. And we don't have that opportunity in so many other aspects of life. Business, you just are sort of expected to have a baseline of knowing what you're doing. Strength and conditioning, baseline of knowing what you're doing. You're not really a beginner. You kind of keep adding on those building blocks. But jiu-jitsu, you always sort of stay a beginner.
Yeah, it's also, and I've done many sports and many different, like whether it was soccer, baseball, I did team sports, I did individual sports, I did everything. I loved rock climbing, everything. I loved all of it. Gymnastics when I was a kid, which I think every kid should do. But jiu-jitsu is unlike literally any other sport and any other activity from the perspective of think about strength training. When you start strength training, you have this thing called newbie gains, where you get stronger literally every time you go to the gym. It's why it's so addicting, because every time you go, you get better. Every time. With jiu-jitsu, when I first started for real, when I went to Henzo's, Damian Anderson, I asked him, because he was training at Henzo's at the time, and I was like, hey man, like, what's your best advice? And he said, you're going to suck for the first 2 years. Just don't quit. Jiu-jitsu is the only thing I've ever tried in which no matter how much I go and no matter how much I do in those first couple of years, it feels like it's not working. It feels like I'm just getting wrecked over and over and over and over. And it's not just like wrecked with a barbell where you're sore or it didn't move. I'll never forget the first time I rolled with a purple belt. We were doing positional drills and he was in top side control and I was in bottom. And it was just like, okay, it wasn't submission. It was just like position only, just try and maintain position for the top and try and escape if you're on bottom. Brianna, I couldn't move. I literally couldn't move. And I'm a wrestler. Like, that's a great position for me because I know how to fight off my back. And I'll never forget, because the purple belt, after about, I don't know, 50, it felt like forever, but it was probably only about 5 to 15 seconds. He was like, hey man, you gotta try and get out. And I was like, dude, I'm trying. I'm actively trying to get out. And it was so demoralizing. Jiu-jitsu is showing up every single day for literally years and getting your ass kicked every single day, physically not being able to impose your will on someone and actually having someone else easily impose their will on you. And I'm just going to keep showing up. I'm just going to keep, it's unbelievably scary and humbling. And if you can, it's why they have such a high dropout rate from white belt. Like, so many people don't ever get their blue belt because, I mean, I get it. It's horrifying and it's scary and it's demoralizing because you feel like you're not making progress. And I think what shifted for me was starting to look for progress in different ways. Like, because when I first started, I would learn a move and then we would roll, and then I would be like, wait, what was the move? And I wouldn't even remember what the move was. And I remember the first time I considered myself making progress was when I was in the middle of a match of rolling, and I just remembered, oh, I can do this here. I didn't get it. I didn't even remember how to get it. I just remembered, oh, this is a position, and thinking back, it was an Americana. I was like, oh, I could get Americana from topside control, and then I lost the position. But I was like, oh, that was good. I remembered that's where I could get that movement. And you have to fight for every ounce of progress and seeing like, okay, so for me, the progressive overload today and the progress was remembering that in this position, I can do this move. It's just the teeniest, tiniest bits of progression.
Yeah. I mean, it really instills grit when you think that you already have it. You're like, I have grit. Like, I've been successful in this category of life. I'm, whatever. We check a lot of boxes along the way. And jiu-jitsu exposes where like you have more vulnerability, whether it's, physical vulnerability or even just like the mental roller coaster of it, of like developing that grit where you're like, damn, like, why do I care so much about this? Like the drives home, like where I'm driving home in silence, or like, I'm a grown ass woman and I still cry when I lose sometimes. Like I'm so mad at myself or so frustrated. I keep falling into the same shit. And it's like, that little girl for me, like she never died. She's still there. And it exposes so much of the shit we still need to work on, even as adults, because you are quite literally putting yourself into the arena to be exposed, to show like what you know, what you don't know, whether it's in practice or in a competition. It's one of the few sports that just really, I think we like to assume the best of ourselves. I'm fit. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I'm all of these things. I can protect myself and my kids if I'm out there because I'm fit, because I'm strong. But no, you don't know. And I think jiu-jitsu is, again, it exposes this vulnerability, but also this opportunity to like do something about it.
That's my favorite, when big bodybuilder dudes come in.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they're like, hey, like, let's roll. And they think that they're going to like show that jiu-jitsu doesn't work. And then they go with me and, 5'3", 140. and they go nuts for the first 30 seconds and they can't breathe, like, yeah. And they're like, they thought they were in shape. There's a difference between being fit and being in fighting shape. They're very, very different things. And then when you have that fight or flight mode kick in, and oh my gosh, which is, I see a lot of people in fitness who think that they're tough and think that like they can do whatever because they deadlift a lot or because they have a lot of muscle. I'm like, it's different.
Yeah,
it's very different.
It is. And I mean, I'm so grateful that I found it when I did, because to bring it like full circle, like I feel like it's really helped me in business because again, it keeps me in alignment with like, how do we stay in the game? It's doing a little bit over time, right? It's like progressive overload applied to life, business, training, like who we are evolving into as people. And I feel like jiu-jitsu is such a great physical outlet for so much of what we're trying to like create in other categories of our life.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. So what does your business look like today in 2025? You got 2 little girls at home. You are devoted to your family. You are still an athlete pursuing that side of yourself. What does the actual business side of your coaching world look like?
So right now, when I first started, it was all one-on-one online. Well, first it started like coaching in person, but then I went to online and it was all one-on-one. And then in 2015, I had a lot of one-on-one clients and I was like, this is unsustainable. I was spending like 16 hours a day doing emails. And so then I made what I now call my inner circle, which is just a membership. And it's probably about 70% women of many ages and 30% men. And everyone in there from high-level jiu-jitsu athletes to people who weigh over 400 pounds and have never worked out a day in their life. And I try and make it as accessible to everybody as possible. So we have nutrition and you can track your calories and do your macro tracking in there. We track calories, protein, fiber. I'm not really as worried about carbs and fats. So you can track that. Or if you have a history of disordered eating and you don't want to track calories, we have a different option for that. Strength training programs, new programs every month. 3 times a week option, 4 times a week options, mobility programs, running programs. It's like everything. And it's constantly we're always trying to improve it. Holy shit, apps are really expensive. People don't understand. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars like every year to get this thing, to keep it going. And that's just for the app, never mind videographers and filming and all of that. So, but it's absolutely wonderful. The community is incredibly kind and supportive, and that's it. That's my main thing. I have another thing for coaches as well, but that's my main business and what I'm really excited about.
No, I mean, and you've done such a great job of just keeping things simple, keeping it real. And again, like your messaging just resonating with so many people because we're in an era where there's information overload on the internet. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of hot takes. And that can be really hard to navigate. And I feel like you've done a really great job of just staying steady with it.
Thank you. I try. I really appreciate that a lot. And I think you do as well.
We also try. And so what advice do you have for coaches that maybe like do get discouraged by how do I have my voice stand out in an industry that sometimes feels like there's not a lot of integrity in it, or there's like a lot of BS in this industry. So what advice do you have for like really good, well-meaning coaches? Tell the truth.
In an industry that is lacking integrity, tell the truth and be what you think is missing. I'll start with like, well, I don't know what to make content about. This one infuriates me. I fucking hate when coaches I don't know what to make content about. It's like you have clients who ask you questions all the time, and like, how do I hit my protein? Make a post on that. What foods are high in protein? Make a post on that. My back hurts when I deadlift. Make a post on that. I mean, and by the way, it's not just one post. You're going to say the same thing over and over and over and over, and you're going to repeat yourself. And if you think that the first time you make a post on something, your post is the only post you'll ever need. You're out of your mind. Your clients will ask you the same questions over and over and over again. So make the same post over and over and over again and just do it better. Learn, like, get better. Like, the first time you make a video, if you go to my YouTube channel and you reorder them from oldest to newest, you'll see my first video, I think, was 2012. It was funny. Someone in the inner circle just posted a screen grab of it in the inner circle, being like, I was just looking at your old videos. How old were you here? I was like 21 years old. My videos were so bad. It was awful. They were so bad. But it's still so many of the same messages, just packaged differently.
Yes.
And so just you say the same thing over and over and over and over again, and do a better job giving your message. Make it more clear, make it more concise, make it more sticky, say things in a way that people will understand, become a better storyteller. But in terms of how do you stand out by telling the truth and having integrity. That's how you stand out in an industry in which it's lacking. That's it. And what I would say is the majority of your content should be about helping people, solving their very real problems. What I will say, though, and this is scary for many people, myself included, but the more I've done it, the less scary it's become. Same thing with literally everything. It's scary the first time you do it. But I used to just say everything should just be fitness. Just that's it. Don't get your personal stuff involved. Now I go the complete opposite way. Share what you believe. Share about who you are. Not just fitness-wise, in your life. Share what you believe in your life, in your heart, in your soul, whatever you believe to be true. Because there are many coaches online. There are many, many people. And the truth is, your knowledge is not unique. Your knowledge is not special. Many coaches have the exact same knowledge as you, if not better. But people, they're not paying for coaching. They're paying for coaches. They're paying for you. And there will be many people who hate you for what you believe, and there will be many people who love you for what you believe. And so in order to stand out and to find clients who resonate with who you are, share what you believe. Be you in every sense of the word, and share it unapologetically. It's very scary because judgment will come in and people will tear you down for it. But then other people will love you for it, and they'll appreciate you for it. And and keep in mind, this is something I changed my mind on, because I used to say, keep it out of it, just all fitness. And again, I do think the majority of your content should be helpful fitness content, the majority. But make sure people know who you are and what you stand for as well.
Now, that is really powerful advice, and simple. Like, tell the truth about who you are, what you believe, what is true. And that will be what sustains, because the flashy stuff that comes in, the false promises, the people come and go. And I think there's a lot to be said about coaches like yourself who have steadily and consistently stayed in the game with what you're saying, and evolving that over time.
And when you have to pretend to be someone you're not, when you have to not take a stance, pretend you're sitting on the fence, you're faking it. And the person that really hurts the most is you. It hurts your soul. It's like, that's why it's so draining, or one reason why it's so draining, because you're not being yourself. If you really want to stay in the game and have more staying power, imagine being in a relationship and not really telling the person you're in a relationship with who you are, like having to hide certain things. It makes their relationship. Yeah. Then you start blaming the relationship and resenting the other person, which is what people do with social media. They start blaming social media. And trust me, social media has a lot of problems, like a lot of problems. But a lot of coaches who are blaming social media, it's like, actually, you need to look in the mirror, because you're not being honest. Yeah. You're not saying who you are. You're not telling the truth. That's your fault.
Yeah. Or they're in such a consumption phase that they're not using anything productively to, like, okay, then go be the change, go create something, and that will shut you up. Like, that takes away from the noise of social media. Or what's draining is when you're actually contributing in a way that feels meaningful. Even like you said earlier, even if it's for one person, when you contribute in a way that is meaningful for one person, and then that starts to multiply, that is the addicting thing that does keep you in the game. That is what helps scale a business.
Yeah. And I know, I'll say this, coaches always get a little bit taken aback when I say it. I think it sort of puts a mirror in their face. But if you're a coach who tells your clients, listen, stop caring so much about the scale, it's just a number, but then you're freaking out about number of followers or number of likes, you are the biggest hypocrite. It's like, it's just a number. Not to mention, I've only got 300 followers. Like, could you imagine standing in front of a room of 300 people? You'd shit yourself. It's like, and what you're actually doing is dehumanizing every individual who's hit that follow button.
Right.
Stop looking at it as like a number of followers. Like, each one is an individual that you have the ability and the opportunity and the blessing to have the chance to help them. It's like, if you have 300 followers and you get 25 of them as clients, that's a hell of an income. That's a hell of an online business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jordan, this was super powerful and really inspiring to have this conversation. I know that a lot of coaches will find a lot of value from it and what you're doing. Tell us where we can find out more about the work that you're doing, or we can follow you.
Yes, I mean, Syatt Fitness on Instagram. I have my own podcast, the Jordan Syatt podcast. I have a podcast for personal trainers called the How to Become a Personal Trainer podcast. So I think that one would be beneficial for coaches. But that's it. And I really think that if they follow you and this podcast, that's everything they need. So just keep following you, Brianna. I think you're amazing.
Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Jordan.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practice Brave podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and help us spread the work we are doing to improve the overall information and messaging in the fitness industry and beyond. Now, if you are pregnant and you are looking for a trustworthy exercise program to follow, I have you covered. The Pregnant Athlete Training Program is a well-rounded program for pregnancy with workouts for each week that are appropriate for your changing body. That's 36 weeks of workouts, 3 to 4 workouts each week, and tons of guidance on exercise strategy. We also have an at-home version of that program. If you are postpartum and you're looking for an exercise program to follow, the 8-week postpartum athlete training program would be a really great way to help bridge the gap between rehab and the fitness you actually want to do. From there, we have the Practice Brave Fitness program, which is an ongoing strength and conditioning program where you get new workouts each week and have a lot of guidance from myself and my co-coach, Heather Osby. This is the only way that I'm really offering ongoing coaching at this point in time. If you have ever considered becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, I would love to have you join us. Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism is a self-paced online certification course that will up-level your coaching skills and help connect the dots between pelvic health and long-term athletic performance, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Become who you needed and become who your online and local community needs by becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. Thank you again for listening to the Practice Brave podcast. I appreciate you. And please help me continue spreading this messaging, this information, and this work.